This is a car I bought a few months ago out of the Salmson Club Bulletin. It was just all in pieces, but it's in the book. It was been known of since 1972, but there was no body at all. It was just a chassis, and also the engine was complete, but we didn't have a cylinder head. But luckily, the same day as I bought the car, I bought all the spares from Don Hill, because the bloke who I bought this from lived just up the road from Don Hill, and he said, "Oh, Don, I'd love to see you." So anyway, we drove down there, and before you know where you are, I bought all his spares off him, because he was obviously a very sick man at that stage, and he was dead worried about leaving Sally with all the problems of sorting all the stuff out. Anyway, I made him an offer and I bought it, and a couple of days later I went down and picked it all up in my Sprinter van. But anyway, in a way, it was quite good that I did that, because I never could have got on with this car like I have, because I needed so many bits. Anyway, we sorted all the best bits out and built the engine up on the original crankcase, because obviously that's got a number on it, and it happens to be a matching number car. Not that I'm terribly into matching numbers, but, you know, there's no point in going against it if you've got the stuff already there. So then, anyway, so I did my usual. I got the thing together, and we made the body, and we've called it our trials car, because I thought if things ever get back to normal, it'd be quite nice to do a few trials. I've only ever done one. I did one in a Brescia Bugatti years ago, and I did two actually, and I did one with Stanley Mann in his Austin 7. And it was such good fun, I thought, well, it'd be nice to have a Salmson, and because Austin 7s win everything. So I thought, well, you know, let's try and get a Salmson up there. Well, because the Salmson's got a solid back axle with no diff, so that's got to be a big help in trials. So really, we basically built this car with trials in mind. So there's lots of room in the cab. I've fitted an outside handbrake, because that's a very useful thing when you're trying to stop yourself sliding down the side of a mountain. And there we are. So we got it all together, but it didn't really run very well. So we said, well, let's take the head off now and try and make it work. It's got nice pistons. It's got quite nice dome pistons, so although it isn't going to have a ridiculously high compression, at least it'll have some compression. So that's it now. So now we took the head off, and then when we started to look at the head, we got several heads from Don Hill. So all in all, we got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But when you look at them, they're all quite badly damaged. This one, all the guides are badly damaged in there. So that's something, but we'll overcome that. And this one's the same. That's got a badly damaged guide. So anyway, we've got one head, which is, we'll come to in a minute. But this is another one. Look, and that's a lovely head. Look, it's got all good guides and everything. But they're all got worn out valve guides. Very, very sloppy. And one of the reasons for that is, on a 4 pushrod engine, there's no oil gets to the top. That's just completely dry, other than what you squirt on it. Well, because in the day, people didn't get out of their car every few miles and squirt oil in there, so they wore. So now we've got the problem of overcoming the loose valve guides. And these valve guides are not removable, they're cast into the cylinder head. Because what you've got to remember with these little old Salmsons, they were cycle cars, and they were being built to a price. And obviously casting that all in one piece saved a lot of money. But to fit valve guides in there, it's quite possible, but it's not easy. And we haven't, you know, we've got a bit of equipment, but we haven't got anything very super special. So we started to look at it, and we decided that if we could get some valves that were very similar, but with a 9mm stem instead of a 8mm stem, we could machine the top part to match the collets and all the bits that hold the valve in. We could shorten them down, and there we are. So First of all, we got on the internet. We looked on the internet and we tried to find some valves, and I suddenly remembered I've got a load of old valves left over from the Bugatti days, when obviously fitting new valves, the old valves, normally people throw them away, but unfortunately I'm not like that. I save everything, which is why we need a big shed. But anyway, so we managed to find some Bugatti valves with 9mm stems, so they were quite easy to modify. So we reamed the head out with a reamer, and as you can see, we've now got acceptable valve guides. They're not like as if we were building a Honda racing car, because if you make them too tight with no lubrication, the valves are going to stick. So in the end, we thought, well, I'm very happy with what we've managed to achieve. So the next thing was cutting the valve seats. So luckily, I managed to borrow a valve seat cutter. And I've actually ordered one from India, very similar to this, and I'm hoping it's going to be as good as this. But it's a great big kit, and the only 2 bits in it that will fit this cylinder head were these 2 bits. Well, that's really good for cutting the seats. So that cut the seats, and then obviously you finish up with a bit of a throat, so that goes in and cuts the throat. So that has given us quite a nice valve seat. But unfortunately, because the valves have been ground in over the years a lot, the valves have sunk in a little bit. So what we've done, we've machined up a couple of valves. That's what the Bugatti valve looked like before we start. But what we've done, we've feathered the edge off so that there's hardly any thickness at all. And that enabled me then to clean the combustion chamber up so that the valves are not shrouded. And that is one that we've done. And as you can see, it's got a very nice valve seat. It's got the throats cut away, and there we are. Now, obviously, the valve springs are not very heavy. So you've got to have a good valve seat for it to make a good compression type seal. So having good, nice valve seats is essential. But the phone just won't stop ringing. I can't work like this. Put those in, and then with the lovely old electric drill and a fitting, and obviously I put a mask on when I'm doing it, but I'm not got a mask on now because I'm not going to be really doing it. And we clean the combustion chamber away. We clean the combustion chamber away, so when the valve is in, you've got the valve seat, and then you've got the open bit. Now, I'm sure there are loads of people that modify cylinder heads and know all about it, and they've got all the equipment, and I'm sure they can do a much better job than we can. But the clue's in the name of the thing. It's a shed. And we haven't got a lot of equipment, but we've got odd bits. Now, obviously, we don't want to make that too tight because there's no lubrication, and we will squirt lubrication on it when we use it, but we don't want the valve to stick. But if you look at that now, it's not shrouded at all. So when the valve opens like that, you get a nice flow from there, and then with that little bit of machine off the back there, the biggest opening you can get, because it only moves about that much, you know, you get a nice... So really, what we're doing really is we're just reclaiming an old cylinder head, basically. Because if you look, the valve seats were massively wide, and what we're doing is we're slimming down the valve seat, because the valve spring on this engine is ridiculous, because it's a Ford pushrod engine, and what it does, it relies on the springs on the rockers. These rockers have a couple of springs on here, so that what happens is it opens the exhaust valve mechanically, and then the exhaust valve's open. Then when it gets to open the inlet valve, it drops off the cam, so the push rod goes down, and you rely on the 2 springs that are on here to overcome this spring to open the inlet valve. So you can't have 2 stronger springs. I think they could be a bit stronger than that, but that's when we're experimenting in the future. But So it's a funny old engine, but the good thing about it is it's got a nice hemispherical head. It's exactly the same as a twin cam. It's not latest design, because having that bit there's a bit of a drama, because a bit of squish would be nice. But anyway, that's another story. So what we're trying to do is just get the best out of it. And obviously, we're not going to rev it too much because it's going to be a trials car. Really, you want to be able to get a load of torque. So when you're trying to get grip on mud, you can let the revs drop completely and just get a bit of grip. And that's what I'm hoping this engine's going to be good at. Better than the Austin 7 side valve engine. And with the no differential axle, which is perfectly standard on a 1924 Salmson, we'll have a load of grip and hopefully we could do very well. We'll see. Right, this is the final touch. I've got a nice thing and I've just getting a little bit more.
Who do you use? What tools do you use for that?
Well, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said to you for over 50 years I've been going to a firm called Finishing Aids and Tools Limited. And we still use them today. So I think initially I went and the old dad run the business and then the son run the business. I don't know who runs the business now, but anyway, over 50 years I've been going to Finishing Aids and Tools and buying this stuff. And it's always useful. And stuff in there. I'm a great believer in combustion chambers. People do all the porting, well, you know, obviously that does make them go better. But this has got all sorts of lumps and bumps and horrible bits in the ports. But I'm thinking that when the car's ticking over almost and we're trying to get the grip on the brass, all them lumps and bumps I think might help us rather than the fuel wanting to fly in. But the combustion chamber, I think, is very important. And also having a good finish, because when it goes bang, you don't want anywhere where the bang can hide. If it's got loads of little marks and things, it isn't going to have the same shock as it is if it's nice and like that. Recently I took my BMW Mini Cooper Works to pieces. And that's got 16 valves and it's a modern engine and everything. And I took it all to pieces and I put new pistons in it which were forged and one thing and another. But the main thing I'm talking about now was the cylinder head. I looked at the cylinder head and the ports were absolutely beautiful. But the combustion chambers weren't that good. So I did what I did here. I tidied up the combustion chambers. But anyway, so that's that done. So now I'm going to grind the valves in for the final time. Relieve that back edge. What I do, you grind the valve in, and then if that back edge is sticking up, I machine it off very, very slightly like that. So that when the valve opens, you've got the maximum amount of area. Not much, it's a whisker really. But you can see, look, where they were used there. You can see where they were used there in the Bugatti. Yeah, obviously that's where the valve opened, but you can see that, but there's no wear. I can't feel anything there. So hopefully there'll be a great success, but who knows? You don't know until you try it. And then, you never know, we might do another cylinder head once we get into this trialling lark, and then we try little bits at a time so that you actually know what's making a difference. Because if you go mad, you can't say, oh yeah, that's a lot better, because you've done it all. And even if it's worse, you still wouldn't know. So I'm a great believer in doing a little bit at a time. So that's what we've done here. So there we are. Right, so put the valve in with a bit of paste. Right, let's see what that looks like. Obviously we'll wash the head off carefully when we finished it so this don't get in anywhere. But as you can see, it's got a nice thin seat. Now this is the next step. Now if you look at this, you'll see that the valve seat is quite a wide valve seat. I mean, if we were building something a bit special, we'd probably go a bit less, but there's the valve seat to there, and then you've got that lump just there. So we're going to take that, put it in the lathe. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to freehand this. So I'll just touch on it to get where it is. And then as I wind it in, with this hand I'll let it go the other way. So I'm freehanding it. Now as you can see, I've gone right down to the valve seat. So when the valve opens, it hasn't got anything in the way that's not doing anything. All the metal that's there is doing something. So that's that one done. So if we just take that out there. By the way, this vice has got no grips on it. It's absolutely smooth, so it don't make any marks on anything. And I didn't graunch it up. But as you can see, that's the valve seat. That there, and then that's the bit that's cut away. Now I could, if I wanted to, put this in. Thin that valve seat down even more. But I think, you know, with this old thing, it isn't going to do any revs, it isn't going to do 1,000,000 miles. I think, you know, let's not go too mad. The Vintage Sports Car Club threw me out once before because my car was too fast. They banned the car. So we don't want to get thrown out again. We'll have to give the others a bit of a chance. They're all going to love beating me, aren't they? Right, so that's number one goes in there. Yeah. And then number two, there you are.
You should be able to sort of... Yeah, look at that.
Ain't leaking, is it?
There's no leak past the valves there.
Give it a blow job from the inside. And I'll just hold it with my fingers. Now this is a very good test, this.
Mind your eyes just in case.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, we reckon we got them on the leak down, probably
Go on.
100%.
Give it. Now, hang on, stop. Hang on. Right, now what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to release the pressure very slightly, and you'll see if the valve wasn't seating what it'll do. Ready? Wow.
And of course, it's not doing all this lot.
No.
Slapping around.
No, we haven't got loose valve guides now.
So when they shut, they shut. Interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a good little hack, isn't it?
Hmm.
What we should do is do a video on the valve timing and show it to people, see what they think, see if they can come up with how you'd work it out.
Yeah. Well, because, you know, people like Mickey Hudson, they've all done it a million times, but they're going to be saying, oh, 2 degrees before.
Yeah,
and
well that would be alright. We could deal with that.
you think we're clever enough to do that?
Yeah, you could say you do the motorbike. But
Yeah.
then they have separate cams, you see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you can really see the valve seats now.
So all you do, you just polish it with them all the time
Yeah,
to take it down like.
yeah.
Don't go in with a burr.